don't lament that, but see it as an opportunity to make yourself an even better candidate than you might otherwise be. Well, welcome, Hunter.
Hello there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Welcome to Am I Ready? And we're going to discover a little bit about you and talk about you a lot, and try to determine when's the best way to best time to apply, and are you ready, and stuff like that. So does that sound good?
That sounds awesome to me. Yep.
Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself just to start off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Idaho Falls, Idaho, born and raised. I lived in Texas for a couple of years as well, and that was fantastic. I am married. I met my wife during, right? Yes, absolutely. Love Texas. Really, really want to get back there. Well, I went to school at BYU, Idaho, Brigham Young University, Idaho, and met my wife. I'm married while I was actually doing research in California at UC Davis. That's where she was attending school. And as far as medicine is concerned, my mom was a nurse. And so I kind of just always grew up with medicine around. But my mom always kind of discouraged the idea of becoming a physician specifically because, and this is nothing against her, because she saw how it affected a lot of the families of the physicians that she spent time with. And that's a really important thing for us, family. And so, but eventually, as I got older, I got into biology, and I loved the science behind the biology. Once I understood it, the chemistry made it so much clearer. I had a good friend whose father was a physician, and I got to see a different side of it, a different lifestyle. And eventually I determined that this is something I could do. And so this is the route that I want to go. I originally, when I started school, I was an English major, and then I was a business major. And then I finally decided, okay, medicine's where I'm headed. So I've kind of been around, I guess, a little bit as far as things that I've been interested in. So
yeah, sure, absolutely. Now, so your degree is in biology then?
Biomedical science, with a minor in chemistry.
Okay, cool. And so why don't we look at if we can go to Mapped and look at your dashboard there. Excellent. Yeah, perfect. And so we see in the GPA dashboard that gives us a good sense of kind of where things are relative to. I'm not sure why the Science GPA is coming up as NA.
Yeah, and I haven't figured that out yet either so far. So
yeah. So you graduated in. When did you graduate?
Just this last July, actually.
Oh, okay. Cool. So we see a little bit of a dip on the semester scale over the last couple of years. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's something that was really difficult for me and frustrating for me. It got to a point where I felt like I was behind in my classes compared to some of my peers. I just I felt like I wasn't on par with where they were at, and I felt like I was slower than them. And so I went to our counseling center at school, actually, and eventually just this January, I got a diagnosis of ADHD and attentive. And once I had that figured out and started treating that, I went from B minuses and withdrawing a class, 2 classes actually, 2 semesters in a row, to extra credits, all A's. So that was really kind of an achievement for me, I think, figuring that out.
Sure, absolutely. And you can see that in the trend over the last couple of years, that trend really does go up pretty notably. Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you. Well, and I think that this story is not necessarily unusual. In my experience, there are even students who get diagnosed with some sort of learning disability or whatever, even in medical school, because they get to a different level of subject matter, a different quantity of subject matter, and they start having problems, and it's just coming out of nowhere. And they go, just as you did, to the resources of their school, and comes up that, here's an issue. And once we address the issue, then things, improve pretty radically. So this is not necessarily an unusual story that you've experienced. So that's encouraging. Now, what are you doing now? So you graduated in the spring. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so my wife is doing her master's degree here at Vanderbilt. We moved to Nashville. I just started as a research assistant at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and I'm also doing getting certified as a Spanish medical interpreter.
Okay, great.
To get some more exposure in clinical and such. So
I assume you speak Spanish fluently.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. That's going to be very valuable in a lot of areas in the country, particularly if you end up back in Texas. Certainly valuable here. So
yes, that is the hope. Absolutely.
That's great. Now, so let's look a little bit at your activities, the activity hours and stuff. Perfect. Why don't you describe a little bit of this to us? Yeah.
So the activity that I've had my hands in most above and beyond everything else, I guess, is research. I've had the opportunity. I met my wife doing research at UC Davis. I went for one semester and worked one-on-one with our principal investigator, and then was invited back again the next year. We have a publication from that, and that's pretty fantastic. I've also gotten to do some physics research and some research in a zebrafish lab.
Good. Yeah, that's great. And so now is this, if you could scroll down a little bit, is there, oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, so you've got a lot of, which is not unusual for somebody like yourself, a lot of activities, publications. That's great. So, Hunter, it kind of appears you've got a little bit of shadowing in 2018-19. Not from what I can look at here, clinical experience is kind of missing, and the shadowing ended in 19 and nothing since then. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And those are two of the activities that I know are my biggest faults as far as just experience with it. I think that a combination of starting out studying other things, business, I didn't jump on the wagon as well early on, combined with the fact that at my university, it's a small city that we're in, 25,000, 19,000 of which are students, last I checked, with one hospital, way overpopulated with pre-medical students, to the extent that for the most part, a lot of the physicians in the area required that students be seniors, junior seniors, have had the exposure to the classes in order to shadow. Which once that came up, COVID-19 hit, and of course I was trying to recover my grades, and that kind of took precedence for a little bit. But that's part of why I'm training to be a medical interpreter and get some clinical hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I mean, obviously, we talk a lot on these broadcasts about how COVID is affecting everybody and how that is changing sort of the dynamic of things with regard to getting shadowing experiences, getting clinical experiences, et cetera. Definitely would encourage you to take advantage of, in the short term, some of the virtual shadowing that's available. Obviously, Dr. Gray's doing the e-shadowing, but there are others as well that will, kind of give you some exposure to medicine in a way that, shows an effort to take care of some maybe an area that's missing for you. And then I think definitely doing the what you're doing with the interpreting thing is great. When will you be finished with that?
So I will be certified in December.
Okay.
Able to just keep working on that from here on out.
Yeah, good. So your hope is to, in the spring, be able to get a position doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, excellent. Yeah, that sounds good. So now if we could go back to the Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the MCAT. So it looks like you've taken the MCAT once. Is that right?
No, I haven't taken it.
Oh, so these are practice scores.
Yep, these are
Okay, I see.
I took a half length in April just to kind of start in, and I've just really started in this last month.
Okay, good. So your plan is to take the MCAT next spring?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. Good. And how are you doing the studying? You're using, prep materials, you're taking a prep class. What are you doing with that?
Yeah, so I'm signed up for a Kaplan prep class that won't actually start until the beginning of next year.
Okay.
But when COVID hit, there were a lot of companies that offered a lot of great opportunities for students. So I've gotten a lot of tests and other resources from other places that I'm working on now.
Right.
Prep as long as I can, as much as I can, heading up to that spring test date. So
Right. Good. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Generally, what I think is that it's really all going to depend on your level of preparation and the commitment that you have to doing the work, putting in the work over the next 6 to 8 months or so to focus yourself and really rehash through some of the material that you're kind of a bit away from, and then also lots of practice tests, really important in terms of getting a good sense of not only how questions are asked, but also timing is crucial. So definitely, I'd say that's stuff that you probably already know, but that I will say anyway.
No worries. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, generally here, Hunter, what I would say is that there's several pieces of this puzzle that I think that you're already aware of. The first is that your overall GPA is in a good area, 3.7 or so. What would you say your science GPA is, even though it's not showing on the screen?
Yeah, the science classes, of course, are what hit me hardest in those semesters. So I would say it's probably a little bit lower than that.
Okay.
Probably around 3.6-ish, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, and so that's obviously if you had more courses in terms of more recent courses to show a continuation of that trend, that would be helpful. But I think really for you the key is not as much the GPA, but is these two other areas that we've talked about already. One being obviously the MCAT. A good strong MCAT score will really help you in this regard in terms of showing that you know the science, that you're able to do and to use the science in terms of critically thinking to answer the questions that are presented to you on the exam. And then I think also the clinical experience is going to be crucial for you. This is an area that I think is a bit of a what am I trying to say? A problem area, or I guess for you. And it sounds like you already knew that was going to be an area where you were a little bit less prepared in. And so I would say, as I said before, the e-shadowing or any kind of virtual shadowing experiences that you can get over the course of the next until you apply, and then we're going to hope that after you finish your training for the interpreting, that you're going to be able to get a job, and that will really address a lot in terms of that area of your application. So what I would say in terms of is Hunter ready, which is really the crucial question here. I would say my feeling is that if everything goes according to plan. So your plan is you're going to stay in the research lab. You're working in the research lab. You're going to do some virtual shadowing. You're going to do the clinical experiences once you get a job in the spring, or a position in the spring doing that. You're going to study extensively for the MCAT, and you're going to prepare well for that. And produce a good score there. So this is the plan. And assuming that everything in that plan works out, then I would say, yeah, I would say I don't think it would be unreasonable for you to apply next year and kind of see what happens. Now, if something intervenes, which often life does, you don't always know what's going to be happening. I think if life intervenes in a way that is going to, if you get to next spring and you get to March or April or whatever, and things just haven't quite worked out so the way that you had planned on them to, then I think you may want to consider waiting a year and getting the extra experiences, preparing more in terms of the MCAT. Let's say, for example, your MCAT score isn't kind of what you were hoping for, or it could also give you an opportunity to maybe pick up a few more courses to just show that you really do have this, that things really have recovered for you in terms of being able to do well in the classroom. Because the concern is with regard to the courses in that GPA graph, is that really what happened was, and you said it yourself, you got to the more difficult biological science courses, and this is where you began to have problems. And this is going to be somewhat concerning to a medical school, because it's just going to be a continuation of that when you get to medical schools, and it's going to be even worse. And so they're going to want to have a good, strong sense that this recovery, that this diagnosis has affected you in such a way that you're able to handle the coursework. And so any amount of courses that you could take. So, for example, if you were able to take a course or two next spring, I mean, you got a lot going on, and I get that. Yeah. But if you were able to even one course or a couple of courses, upper level biological science type courses, then that's just going to add to your contention that you've solved you've solved the issue, and that you've recovered, and that that you can do well, and you can show that in the classroom. So I would say I am guardedly optimistic that you could apply next year, assuming everything sort of plays out the way we've talked about. But I think that you may have in the back of your mind the idea that if I needed to delay a year in order to kind of bolster some of these experiences and stuff, that is a plausibility. And that's often very difficult for students to hear that, and but my encouragement to you is that you're still young guy. You got plenty of time. Time is really on your side in terms of being able to have the time to do some more work. So don't lament that if it plays out that way. Don't lament that, but see it as an opportunity to make yourself an even better candidate than you might otherwise be. So I would say, having a good sense of where things are, being very honest with yourself by late spring next year, and being able to evaluate with in an honest kind of way where things stand would be important for you. And then you can kind of see, but I would say, as I said, assuming things work out the way you've kind of planned, I would say, sure, go for it.